On this episode of Postcards.
I always look forward to spending time in the studio, and I spend hours upon hours in the studio doing things.
I was like, wow, I love this more than anything else I've done in my life.
Art gives me a mode of expression primarily, and it gives me a great just outsource of energy too.
I like to set out an original idea and then kind of build off of that.
Postcards is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Additional support provided by Margaret A. Cargill Philanthropies, Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farms, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota, on the web at shalomhillfarm.org. Alexandria, Minnesota, a year-round destination with hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for memorable vacations and events. More information at explorealex.com. The Lake Region Arts Council's Arts Calendar, an arts and cultural heritage-funded digital calendar showcasing upcoming art events and opportunities for artists in West Central Minnesota, on the web at lrac4calendar.org. You know you can watch Postcards on your TV, but did you also know you can watch Postcards and other Pioneer shows anywhere, anytime using Pioneer On Demand at video.pioneer.org.
So my name is Haley Lamont. I am from Hot Springs, South Dakota, and my majors are studio art and communication media and rhetoric. So my mediums are sculpture is my major medium and photography is my minor medium. However, this year I got started in ceramics just because I needed to take another art class and I thought it'd be fun. And I really found my place there. You know, I'm going at it in sort of a sculptural sense. I started taking photographs. That's where I started doing it for 4-H, for competitions when I was, beginning in 4-H, so 8 years old. I was like, that's something that I want to do. Then I was doing art in high school, and that was something that I was interested in. But like coming to Morris, I didn't actually start out in the art major. I didn't start that until my sophomore year. And originally I was just planning on doing photography to supplement my communication degree because I was very interested in photojournalism. But then I took like the basic studio classes, and I really fell in love with sculpture because it was very similar to the sort of things that I had done before, working on my family's ranch, using like the same type of tools and like the same methods of doing things. What I really like about photography artistically is that you can sort of tell more than just like documenting. So that's really where I started, was doing like events photography. You know, you're documenting things. The photography that I do for like my art major is quite a bit different than the photography that I do for my communications job. Because when I am doing it for art, I'm really thinking of like the artistic elements and principles. In the past 2 years, I've really gotten into architecture photography and have been doing more of that. And I've started now leaning more towards abstract photography, so taking the elements of architecture and abstracting them and seeing, you know, what sort of information that gives about the building and about, you know, just other things about the elements and principles of art. Like just recently, I had gone home for fall break and I took a bunch of pictures of like these sort of like old buildings around like my family's ranch. And then I came back and I developed them and I was getting everything ready for a critique. And I was like, whoa, everything is sort of becoming abstracted. I had like this one photo of, it was like the inside of a building. I had it out on the table, I was gonna pin it up. And I was like, what if I turn this upside down? And it completely changed everything. It wasn't planned, but I just went to grab it and I was like, wow, that's a different piece of art. Like this is completely new art than it was before. I do what I do because it's fun. That's really where it all comes from. I always look forward to spending time in the studio, and I spend hours upon hours in the studio doing things. I do sculpture. I mostly do wood because I like I like working with wood, and I like to keep things like pretty natural. So a lot of like the textures and stuff that I create, it's like a natural, more like rustic sort of wood appearance. I don't paint anything. I just use like stains and oils so that you can like still see like the wood grain. Like when I use metal, I put different oils, patinas and stuff on it to make it sort of like rusty looking or like rustic looking. And it all sort of goes back to my experience living in like a rural area on a ranch. So like those sort of looks, you know, most ranches or farms or whatever, they have buildings that are sort of like looking a little bit worse for the wear, but like it still functions really well. And so that's kind of the messaging that I'm trying to get through. Really what inspires me is like looking at what other people are doing, especially like looking at nature too. That's something I am always sort of like thinking about. You know, just with my phone, I will go out on walks out in the nature and just like take pictures of like things that maybe other people wouldn't, you know, like nice macro pictures of like different like natural patterns, different textures, and those are things that I sort of try to incorporate into my work, but really looking at like what other people are doing. So I'll see that somebody's doing this and I'm like, that's really cool. What if I did this like on top of that, and then just sort of push everything farther. And so everybody has a little bit of art within them, and it's not just painting, and it's not just like sculpture or drawing or whatever it is. You know, it's like architects, that's art, designers, everything that you use was made by an artist. It was designed by an artist. And even like in your personal life, you know, how you arrange your house, how you choose like what throw pillows go on the bed, like that's a little bit of like an artist's perception. So you need to like look within yourself and just like see art where it is, which is everywhere. Art has like those little things where you think this is where you're going with your art. And then something happens and then you're like, whoa, I have this whole new direction that I can go. And that's something that I experience a lot because I like doing everything. I want to try everything at least once. And that's, you know, sort of been a problem for me, is like reining myself in and being like, okay, you need to stick to sort of a theme. But the best piece of advice I was ever given was actually by my high school art teacher. And he really had a profound impact on me. And what he would say almost every single day was, be the best you can be. It really transferred into everything. So, I mean, that's sort of what I do, is like every day I come into the studio and I'll look at like my old work and I'm like, okay, because when you're an artist, every time you look at your old work, you're like, that's not good. You know, you find something to nitpick at. And so every single day when I come in, I'm like, this is something new. This is a new day. I can do better. I can be better, and I can like push myself farther. Of course, I'm still gonna like look back on that and be like, oh, that's like, I'm gonna nitpick one detail. I'm like, that's just a little bit off. Like, that's not perfect. But it's always about like trying to improve and be better.
My name is Paige Quinlivan. I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota, and I am a playwright and director of theater. I did theater my entire life. I went to performing arts high school, and then, you know, my junior year, I took a playwriting class, and that's sort of what sparked it, because my teacher pulled me aside and said, hey, this is really good. You should do this for the New Play Festival. I had a really good response. You know, people were telling me, hey, you could do this. And I didn't just think, hey, I'm good at this. I was like, wow, I love this more than anything else I've done in my life. I try to write in a non-realistic or sort of genre-bending style. A lot of my influences come from like, not like high culture. Like, I really like to pull from what people think is like low culture. I really love like the genre or the essence of camp in all its forms, like the films of John Waters, Rocky Horror, stuff like that, you know, TV shows like Xena, Warrior Princess, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I mean, I love things like that that are sort of ironic and witty and slightly detached, but also completely earnest and just willing to put forward something that is enjoyable and enjoys itself and doesn't take itself too seriously. I just love things that are outlandish and genuine and kind of shocking, I guess. Yeah. You're daydreaming, but just on a more structured level. So that in and of itself is amazing. Just like being able to think, oh, I can write this, like, and then just writing it. That itself is just fantastic and so gratifying. What makes me love it so much is seeing it in performance and seeing what people do with it. When you write a play, you're writing a text that is meant to be reinterpreted. It's like you're making the sketch, and so it's your job to create vivid images and vivid characters in a really short span of time. And then it's the director's job and the actor's job to interpret it and make it their own. My process is all over the place. I will literally be like maybe listening to a podcast, watching a TV show, and I'll see like an image or a certain moment and I'm like, oh, I want that. Or like an idea will just dawn on me and I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. So then I write it down. I let it form in my head for maybe like 2 years. I literally don't touch it. Every time I try to, I'm like, this is terrible, I hate it. And then one day I sit down and I'm like, okay, it's time to write this. And then I sequester myself, like I do not talk to anyone. I write it in a fevered state, not because I want to, but because I can't really stop. And then it's done and I look at it. And then I think the process starts, because to me, you lay out the themes and ideas and then you edit and fine tune it. So then I'll probably edit a play over the course of like 3 months and try to shape it. A one-act play that I wrote. And so it started off as just like this little thing and it grew into something bigger. So it comes from a background of me. I was obsessed with John Hughes and still love like 80s like new wave alternative music. It's been a really formative part of my life. And I wanted to pay homage to that and do like a sort of 80s-esque John Hughesy rom-com that felt personal to me. When you look at it from today's perspective, all of his work, even though it really well articulates that sort of teen angst and that existential dread of being a teenager, a lot of his work is really sexist and homophobic and just like not really helpful. And so I decided I wanted to kind of reclaim that and write a John Hughes style rom-com that was explicitly gay. When John Hughes Wrote My Diary premiered at the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival, my professor Luke said that the air just was sucked out of the room. It was insane. People connected to it in a way that I was not anticipating. And it got like a standing ovation. And I think that reaction and seeing that in the crowd, regardless of some of the weird criticisms I've gotten, like that moment is just telling me like what I'm doing, what I'm writing, what I'm believing in is hitting a nerve with people my age. I think in the time we're living in, particularly as like a youth, I think it's really important that playwrights in particular look at their moral and ethical responsibility to creating not only responsible art, because we've been seeing a lot of responsible art in the theater, but I feel like it's art that is just like, this is responsible, and this is about identity and nothing else. And I feel like we as artists, writers, need to take that and bring it to the next level. So we're not just talking about our identities and what is going on in America, but we need to elevate it. We need to use metaphor and be willing to have fun and create art that isn't just like, here's this responsibility you have as an audience, but it's like, here's catharsis, take that and like bring it out into the world. I don't know. I just believe in creating joy. And I think it's important as artists today not to just create art out of a sense of responsibility, but a sense of love for the world and altruism, and looking at the art you create as a gift you can bestow to the people like you in the crowd who need to hear those stories and need that catharsis.
My name is Kaylee Christensen, and I am from Clara City, Minnesota. My artistic background has basically been a lifelong journey for me. I started making art when I was just a little kid, whether it be watercolor painting, drawing my dreams, anything like that. It pursued into elementary school and high school. I was taking art classes all throughout. And then I started pursuing art here at Morris my sophomore year. Art gives me a mode of expression, primarily. It is a process where I can use my hands to translate that into ideas that I have, and it gives me a great just outsource of energy too. The mediums I work in vary across all spectrums of art. I do a little bit of everything, but primarily here at Morris, I've been focused on photography mostly, a little bit of painting, and then screen printing is my main medium that I work with. The way they intercorrelate with each other is a little interesting. So my photography is more abstract in content. It's a little bit more explorative in the themes that I'm working with, whether it be more melancholic, whether it be portrait work that I'm doing. And then my screen printing is much more pictorial in nature. It's more, I guess, concrete, tangible for the consumer or audience to see. What I enjoy about these mediums is the way that I'm able to be really meticulous and articulate with my mediums in screen printing. It's a very tight process, so I'm able to get some of my perfectionist energy out that way. In photography, it's much more loose for me in that way, but it is still a very organized process. So I have been a photographer for a while. I've been doing photography in high school. I had never had any exposure to film until about a year ago, first semester. I had taken my first film photography class, and that really opened up a lot of doors for me. It was really nice to strip down the photography process to a basis level where I was able to learn everything by hand over again, essentially. So I did a whole year of film photography last year, and then I've been going back into digital this semester with a more creative, abstract edge to it. I feel like film has a certain look to it where it's just so raw and organic in a way, and the way you manipulate it is really up to you. You can just go hands in with the chemical, with the light exposure, and able to doctor it that way. And you can also work with transparencies too, where you can kind of fool the audience into thinking it was a digital manipulation, but it was all done by hand. So that kind of process has been really fun for me, and it really did open up a lot of doors last year for me too. Things that inspire my work are tattoo-related themes, so I'm really into the tattoo community, so I will draw a lot of inspiration from that. Artists around me really inspire me too, ones that I follow on social media, online, illustrators. I'm also really inspired by nature, plants, an earth tone-based color palette, and just general concepts like that. The way I approach my project is a very organized one, so I have kind of a whole formula that I follow. Usually it starts with some reflection, just deciding what I want to put, or what I want to put into the piece, what I want it to be about. I'll usually spend a lot of time doing that. And then it goes into the drawing phase, if I'm doing a screen print in particular. So I will draw the whole thing out, usually layer by layer on a device like an iPad or even just like pen and paper. And then I'll bring it to a computer, translate it into Photoshop, and have all the layers printed out. So it's a very systematic process, especially when I put stencils into screens for screen printing. It's pretty formulated at this point, so it makes the process pretty simple. I would say since coming to college and being more of a formal study for me, it's gotten a lot more intentional. The reasoning behind my work has become a lot more substantial, contemplative, well-developed. The responses that I've had for my artwork have been great for this time in my life. I've been getting a lot of feedback, whether it be from faculty, which is always nice. I really do appreciate review time. It's usually a pretty stressful thing for students, but I always take it with so much appreciation and gratefulness for that opportunity to hear back from faculty that I really look up to. Also just general public. I do have an Instagram account where I pose a lot of my artwork on, and I've actually been getting recognized for it just in general in life from people I don't know, which is always really flattering and really surprising too. The best piece of advice I've been given is just, it might sound a little traditional, but just to follow your call and what you're destined to do. Like I was talking about with my freshman year self, my 18, 19-year-old self, I really wasn't sure what I was supposed to do or if this was like the right choice practically, or what was going to be next for me, but it really is just about following what you are supposed to do And so if that's just to make art and, you know, exist that way and reach people that way, then that's great. And that's what I feel like my calling is. So. I love the aspect of giving people a piece of artwork that they can have, you know, forever. I have a couple friends that have had my drawings tattooed on them, and that's just the greatest feeling. And just even within my own experience of getting tattooed, I love collecting artwork from different people. It's such a fulfilling experience for me, and to be able to give that to somebody else is just something that really draws me to it. Some advice I'd like to give any, you know, young artist, someone maybe that's just going into art for the first time, feels the call to it, is you're gonna have a lot of experiences within it. You're gonna be filled with self-doubt. You're gonna be filled with times where you're not really sure what you're doing or where you're going or where your art is taking you. You might have dry spells, but the thing is to really persevere through it and to go through it. And you will have these awe-inspiring moments where things will change for you. Doors will open up and everything will feel like it's falling into the right place at the right time. But you just need to like work through those struggles because we all have them. Even outside of the art field, they're always going to be there. But yeah, that would be my biggest piece of advice. I wish I had somebody telling me that all the time, even now, so.
My name is Caroline Vodacek. I'll be graduating in May of 2019. I'm majoring in studio art and English, and I'm originally from New Auburn, Wisconsin. Well, I had art classes ever since, you know, elementary school through middle school, high school. I took a lot of drawing and painting classes and a lot of ceramics classes. I was really into pottery, especially like functional pottery. And then when I went into college, I've kind of always done art, not necessarily with the intention to major in studio art, but yeah, I've always been taking art classes in my 5 years of college, yeah. I primarily work in printmaking and sculpture. Specifically within printmaking, I do a lot of the relief processes, which is like having a solid plate and carving into it, mostly linoleum or wood. And then in sculpture, I'd say I mostly work in wood because, well, I grew up surrounded by like woods. And then I think now what really drives me to work with wood is it's kind of like a little discovery with each piece of wood. You can kind of look at the surface of wood and be like, okay, so here's a knot right here, you know, and like the grain is like really close together, or it's really wide, or it's like not pronounced. But then like you really don't know like what's in a piece of wood until you start like carving into it. Like sometimes you'll find like another knot like hidden in there, you know, and I think that's really exciting. It kind of keeps you like rolling with the punches, you know. You don't know what you're gonna like uncover, and you kind of have to like work with that. Lately, the themes I've been working with involve childhood and memories and nature, which is kind of where I also get that drive for wood, you know, because it's a very natural material. But mostly nature and identity and how those two play together. Life and identity really does kind of mirror nature and draw from nature because, like, you know, nature is its own system, you know, like nothing grows in nature by itself. You know, there's like so many different stimuli and factors that play into like how nature grows. And I think that is precisely what art is. You know, like you can make it by yourself, but even then there's so many different stimuli and so many different factors that play into like how art gets created. So I think that's also why I'm focused so much on nature recently, yeah. I've just been thinking about how nature has influenced my identity to this day, yeah. I think right now I'm kind of going in two different areas for printmaking and sculpture. I think they're kind of a little bit different for both. Printmaking, I think less about the design at first, and I think about kind of what I want to do a piece about. Currently, I just kind of have a few pages of my notebook, very general, you know, like words from like tree, you know, to very more specific, like what kind of tree, and then like very specific memories. So I think that's kind of been the first step of my process lately. I think about a specific memory that I want to draw on. And then I can kind of think more about the design and how the lines interact with each other. And for printmaking, kind of what kind of material I want to use. Do I want to use wood? Do I want to use linoleum? You know, what do the different materials offer? And I do think about design lastly, and I kind of play around with that. I kind of like to set out an original idea and then kind of build off of that. Because like, I try not to go with my first idea because I feel like there's always something better out there. You know, like you think of something initially and then you're like, okay, I can improve on that. I think I do art because I can't really imagine doing anything but it. Really, any creative work, I've always thought of myself as a creative person, and I guess that means art, visual art in a large part of it. I just really enjoy doing it. I think anytime that I'm not doing art, I'm thinking about what my next project is going to be. I think the role I've kind of been thinking about lately that I myself as an artist want to take on to help people remember their own memories. Because the more I think about it, the more I think about my art, and the more I'm like, okay, what piece do I want to create next? The more memories I recall, for better or worse, you know? Some of them are good memories, some of them are bad memories. But I think it's what's really important is that you can remember them. That's something that I'm very happy that my art has done, because I want it to be a personal expression of myself, but I also want it to kind of recall memories for other people. I want it to kind of reach other people. I like that artists can put memories down on page, and then we can kind of collect them all together and put them up in a gallery and create an exhibition, and then visitors come in and they themselves make memories and bring their own memories into the gallery. So it's just like this space of memories, and I think that that's kind of the track I'm on right now, and I really like that. I also do theater, and that's been a very recent thing. But honestly, it's been a long time coming, you know? It was like growing up, I've always wanted to do theater, and like I did a little bit of theater in high school, but not really that much, you know, and I've danced. So like I've been on stage, but like I think it's just that like I enjoy being on stage, you know, and I enjoy being able to take on these different personas. And I think like with art, I think it's just the same thing, you know, like I just enjoy creating visual memories.
Are you a fan of Postcards? Follow us on your favorite social media platform to get the latest news on upcoming episodes, behind the scenes, and more. Postcards is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Additional support provided by Margaret A. Cargill Philanthropies, Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farms, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota. On the web at shalomhillfarm.org. Alexandria, Minnesota, a year-round destination with hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for memorable vacations and events. More information at explorealex.com. The Lake Region Arts Council's Arts Calendar, an arts and cultural heritage funded digital calendar showcasing upcoming art events and opportunities for artists in West Central Minnesota. On the web at lrac4calendar.org.